I knew 3 things before I even opened my eyes. My head hurt. The room smelled like rain and coffee, and the hoodie wrapped around me did not belong to me. The fabric was heavy, soft from years of washing, and warm in a way that felt almost too personal, like it had remembered someone else before deciding to remember me. I blinked at a ceiling I had never seen. Pale morning lights spilling across exposed wooden beams, and for one terrifying second I wondered if I had somehow been traded into a quieter, more expensive version of my life. Then I looked down. Navy blue cotton, white drawstrings, a tiny embroidered wolf over the left side of my chest, and beneath it, stitched in clean block letters, the name Hayes. Carter Hayes, team captain, town favorite, human instruction manual for how to stand straight, speak less, and somehow make everyone feel safer just by entering a room. I sat up too fast and immediately regretted it. The living room tilted. A blanket slid from my shoulders. Somewhere nearby, a pan hissed, and a deep voice said, "Easy, Brooks. You're not late for anything." I turned so quickly my neck cracked. Carter stood in the open kitchen wearing gray sweatpants, a white t-shirt, and the calm expression of a man who regularly found confused teammates waking up on his couch in his clothes. He held a spatula in one hand and a mug in the other, like this was a normal Sunday morning and not the beginning of my social downfall. "Why?" I said, my voice rough enough to scare even me. "Am I wearing your hoodie?" Carter looked at me for exactly 1 second too long. His eyes, usually the steady blue-gray of the Oregon coast before a storm, flicked to the name on my chest, then back to my face. "Because you were cold." That was it. 4 words. No panic. No explanation. No helpful diagram. Just because you were cold, as if people woke up inside their soccer captain's favorite hoodie every day in Harbor Cove. I stared at him. He turned back to the stove. Outside the windows, rain traced silver lines down the glass, and beyond the deck I could see a narrow street, a row of cedar trees, and the blurred shape of the bay half a mile away. This was definitely Carter's house. I had seen it once from the passenger seat of Mason's pickup after practice, the little blue Craftsman with the porch light always on. I had never been inside. I definitely had no memory of being invited in. "Carter," I said carefully, "what happened last night?" He slid scrambled eggs onto 2 plates. "We won." "I remember that part." "You assisted the winning goal." "I remember that too, mostly because Mason screamed so loud he almost swallowed his whistle." One corner of Carter's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make my stomach do something embarrassing. "Then we went to Rosie's Diner." I searched my memory and found rain, neon lights, the team chanting our names, Carter's arm around my shoulders for a photograph, and the sharp, sudden feeling that the room had become too bright and too loud. After that, everything turned soft around the edges. "And then?" I asked. Carter placed a plate in front of me on the coffee table. Eggs, toast, 2 slices of orange, and a glass of water beside a bottle of pain reliever. "Thoughtful. Terrible. Devastating." "And then you needed a quiet place," he said. My fingers tightened around the sleeves of his hoodie. "Did I do something weird?" "You apologized to a parking meter." I closed my eyes. "Great." And thanked a puddle for reflecting the moon. Even better. This time he did smile, small and quick, like he was trying not to make it obvious. It made him look younger, less like the captain everyone trusted, and more like a man who had been awake too early making breakfast for someone he refused to explain. I should have laughed. I should have made a joke, thrown the hoodie at his face, and rescued my dignity before it drowned completely. Instead, I looked down at the name stitched over my heart and felt something quiet press against my ribs. "Why didn't you just take me home?" I asked. Carter's smile faded, but not into anger, into something gentler, something guarded. He sat in the chair across from me, elbows on his knees, hands loosely folded. For a moment, the rain filled the silence between us. "Because when I asked where home was," he said, "you said you weren't sure anymore." I stopped, breathing. The words landed softly, but they opened something I had been trying very hard to keep shut. Seattle. The job I had left. The apartment I had packed in 2 days. The father who kept asking when I was going to settle down into something practical. The team I had joined because running drills on a muddy field with strangers seemed easier than admitting I had no idea what came next. Carter watched me carefully, not pushing, not pitying, just there. That might have been the worst part. I could handle teasing. I could handle awkwardness. I could not handle being seen with that much kindness before breakfast. You still haven't explained the hoodie, I said, because it was safer than everything else. Carter stood, picked up his mug, and looked toward the window where the rain kept falling like the night had not quite finished with us. I told you, he said. You were cold. But the way his voice changed, quiet and careful, told me there was more to it than that. And for reasons I did not understand yet, Carter Hayes would rather let the whole team think whatever they wanted than tell me the truth. Carter drove me back to the small duplex I rented above Mrs. Alvarez's flower shop just after 9, with my damp clothes folded in a paper grocery bag on the floor between my shoes. He did not ask if I wanted to talk. He did not fill the silence with advice. He simply turned the heater up when he saw me rub my hands together, then pretended not to notice when I looked out the window too long. That was the strange thing about Carter Hayes. Everyone in Harbor Cove trusted him, not because he was loud or charming or always smiling, but because he paid attention in a way that made careless people look noisy. On the field, he knew who needed encouragement and who needed space. At Rosie's diner, he remembered that Mason hated pickles, that Eli always ordered extra ranch, and that I took my coffee with too much cream when I was nervous. At the high school where he taught physical education, parents stopped him in the grocery store to thank him for helping their kids believe they could try out for a team. He was the kind of man people leaned on before they realized they were leaning. And somehow, for one rainy night, he had let me lean on him too. I should have felt grateful. I did feel grateful. But gratitude can be a dangerous thing when it is mixed with embarrassment and a crush you have been hiding behind sarcasm for 3 months. When his truck pulled up beside the flower shop, I reached for the door handle too quickly. I can wash the hoodie and bring it to practice, I said. Carter looked at the windshield instead of at me. Rain dotted the glass in tiny silver beads. Keep it for now. Carter, your jacket is still wet. It is 62 degrees outside. Coastal 62 is different. I stared at him. He kept a straight face so perfectly that I almost respected it. That is not science. It is Oregon. I hated that I laughed. I hated even more that he looked pleased for half a second before hiding it behind his usual calm. I got out with the grocery bag tucked under one arm, the hoodie sleeves covering half my hands, and watched him wait until I unlocked the side door before he drove away. That small gesture should not have meant anything. In Harbor Cove, people waited. People waved from porches. People held doors open and remembered your dog's name even if you did not have a dog. But from Carter, it felt different, like he was making sure the world had put me back safely where it found me. Upstairs, my apartment looked exactly as I had left it and still somehow felt unfamiliar. A half-finished logo design glowed on my laptop. Empty takeout containers sat beside sketchbooks. A moving box labeled winter things remained unopened by the window, though I had moved in 6 weeks ago. I stood in the middle of it all wearing another man's name over my heart and realized Carter had heard something last night I had not meant to say out loud. I was not sure where home was anymore. By noon, the teen group chat discovered the first photograph. Mason had posted it with 3 laughing emojis and the caption, "Found our missing midfielder." He attached a blurry shot from outside Rosie's diner. Me wrapped in Carter's hoodie, Carter standing beside me under the awning, one hand hovering near my shoulder but not touching his face turned toward me with an expression I had never seen during practice. Soft, careful, almost afraid. My phone buzzed again. Eli wrote, "Captain has favorites now." Then Coach Ramirez replied, "As long as the favorite shows up on time for training." I dropped the phone onto my couch like it had personally betrayed me. 5 minutes later, a private message appeared from Carter. "Ignore them." I typed 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, "Easy for you to say. You are not the one wearing evidence." His reply came almost immediately. "It is a hoodie, Brooks. Not a confession." I read that sentence until it stopped being funny. Then, because I was me, because bravery often arrived in my life disguised as a bad joke, I wrote back, "Good. Because I would hate to find out your feelings are machine washable." For almost a full minute, nothing happened. Then Carter sent one line. "Cold water only." Saturday had started with the kind of rain that made Harbor Cove look like an old watercolor painting. All gray roofs, wet sidewalks, and cedar trees bending toward the bay. By late afternoon, the soccer field behind the community center had turned slick and bright under the stadium lights, with puddles shining along the sidelines and parents huddled beneath umbrellas as if they were attending a very dramatic picnic. I had spent the first half on the bench, which was where I usually lived during important games, wrapped in my own jacket and pretending not to mind. I was not terrible at soccer. I was just new, and new people in small towns had to earn trust one completed pass at a time. The Harbor Wolves had played together for years. They knew each other's habits the way families know the sound of footsteps in a hallway. Mason always pointed before he crossed. Eli always muttered to himself before a free kick. Carter never raised his voice unless he needed to, and even then, his calm carried farther than anyone else's shouting. From the bench, I watched him move through the rain like the weather had agreed to cooperate with him personally. He was not flashy. He was precise. He knew when to slow the game down, when to push forward, when to place a hand on someone's shoulder and remind them to breathe. With 10 minutes left, we were tied 1-1, and Coach Ramirez turned toward me. For a moment, I thought he was looking for someone behind me. Then he said, "Brooks, warm up." My stomach dropped so fast I almost left it under the bench. Mason, standing nearby with a towel over his head, grinned. No, the other graphic designer with commitment issues. I stepped onto the field 2 minutes later with cold rain running down the back of my neck and every insecurity I had ever owned sprinting beside me. The other team pressed hard. Their midfielders were faster than I expected, and twice I passed too soon, afraid of being the reason we lost. Then Carter appeared beside me during a stoppage, his hair dark with rain, his breathing steady. "You are looking at your feet," he said. I wiped water from my eyes. "That is where the ball is. Look up anyway." That sounds like a metaphor. It is also soccer. The whistle blew before I could answer. The next few minutes blurred into wet grass, shouting, and the sharp slap of the ball against cleats. I forced myself to look up. I saw Eli making a run. I saw Mason pulling a defender wide. I saw Carter, just beyond the penalty box, not waving, not demanding, simply trusting that I would see him. Something settled inside me. Not confidence exactly, but a small refusal to disappear. I took one touch, then another, and slipped the ball through a narrow lane I would not have dared to try an hour earlier. Carter met it perfectly. His shot curved low into the far corner, clean and impossible, and for one breath the field went silent. Then Harbor Cove exploded. The bench emptied. Someone shouted my name. Coach Ramirez threw both arms into the air. Carter turned, rain streaming down his face, and ran straight toward me. I had no time to prepare for the way he caught me in a fierce, laughing hug, lifting me just enough that my cleats left the grass for half a second. Around us, everyone was yelling, but all I heard was Carter's voice close to my ear, warm and breathless. "You looked up." I laughed because I had no idea what else to do with the feeling rising in my chest. Under the lights, in the rain, with his hand steady against my back, I forgot to be the new guy. I forgot to be careful. For one bright, dangerous moment, I felt like I belonged. Rosie's Diner was only 3 blocks from the community field, but after the game it felt like the whole team had marched there with enough noise to wake every sleeping dog in Harbor Cove. Someone had brought a portable speaker. Someone else was still wearing muddy cleats, even though Rosie herself had pointed at the sign by the door that said absolutely no cleats, Harold. The windows were fogged from the inside, glowing with warm yellow light against the rainy evening, and the smell of fries, coffee, maple syrup, and wet jackets wrapped around us the moment we stepped in. For the first 20 minutes, I was happier than I had been in months. Mason kept retelling the goal with more drama every time, adding details that had definitely not happened, including a bald eagle, a slow-motion spin, and me apparently whispering destiny before passing the ball. Eli made a toast with a vanilla milkshake. Coach Ramirez called me kid, even though I was 26, then clapped my shoulder hard enough to move my skeleton 2 inches to the left. Carter sat across from me in the corner booth, quiet as always, but whenever the others praised the goal, his eyes found mine with the smallest look of agreement, as if he was saying, "Let them say it. You earned this." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But celebration has a strange way of turning sharp when you are not used to being seen. The diner grew louder. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. Mason pulled me into a group selfie, and someone asked where I had played before Harbor Cove. I said Seattle, keeping my voice light. Then another teammate asked if I had moved here for work, and before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. It was an email notification from the design agency I had left behind. The subject line neat and professional and cruel in the way ordinary things can be cruel. Final notice regarding unresolved contract files. My throat tightened. The red vinyl booth, the neon sign over the counter, the laughter, the rain tapping on the windows, all of it folded inward. I could still hear everyone, but their voices sounded far away, like I was underwater. I smiled because that was what I knew how to do. Smile, nod, make a joke before anyone noticed the crack. Carter noticed anyway. His expression changed by a fraction, but I saw it. Of course he did. That only made it worse. I stood too quickly, bumping my knee against the table. Bathroom, I said, though nobody had asked. I slipped past the jukebox, past Rosie carrying a tray of pancakes to a night shift nurse, past a wall covered in old team photos and faded local headlines. Instead of turning toward the restrooms, I pushed through the side door into the narrow alley behind the diner. The cold air hit me first, then the rain. I should have gone back inside. I should have laughed at myself, blamed too much coffee, ordered pie, let the night stay beautiful. Instead, I stood under the weak glow of the back porch light with my hands braced on my knees, trying to convince my lungs that breathing was still their main job. I hated that feeling. The sudden, humiliating certainty that I was too much and not enough at the same time. Too sensitive for a team celebration. Not strong enough for a fresh start. Too old to be lost. Too tired to pretend I had a map. Water ran down my hair and into my collar. My jacket, already damp from the field, grew heavy on my shoulders. I heard the door open behind me, soft enough that whoever came out was trying not to startle me. I did not turn around. I am fine, I said, because those 3 words were the emergency blanket I threw over every fire. Carter did not answer immediately. The rain filled the alley between us. Then his footsteps moved closer, slow and careful, stopping a few feet away. I believe that you want to be, he said. That should not have undone me, but it did. I laughed once, thin and embarrassed, and wiped my face like the rain was the problem. Please do not tell the team. I will not. I just needed air. I know. This happens sometimes. All right. There was no panic in his voice. No judgment. No awkward attempt to fix me in one sentence. Just all right. Steady and simple, like I had handed him a glass instead of a broken piece of myself. I finally looked at him. Carter stood in the rain without his jacket zipped, hair damp, shoulders broad beneath that navy hoodie. The back door threw a rectangle of diner light behind him, turning him into something almost unreal, except his eyes were too human for that, too worried and too kind. You should go back inside, I said. They need their captain. Carter stepped closer, pulled the hoodie over his head, and held it out to me. Right now, he said, you need someone more. I looked at the hoodie in Carter's hands as if it were something fragile instead of a piece of cotton with rain darkening the shoulders. The sensible thing would have been to refuse. I had spent most of my adult life learning how to appear low maintenance, easygoing, the kind of person who never made anyone step away from a party or stand in an alley during a cold Oregon rain. Accepting the hoodie felt like admitting I could not handle a simple celebration without becoming a weather emergency. Carter seemed to understand the argument happening inside my head, because he did not push the hoodie toward me. He simply held it there, patient and quiet, his white t-shirt already beginning to cling damply to his shoulders in the rain. You will get cold, I said. I have been cold before. That is a terrible answer. It is an honest one. I wanted to laugh, but my breath shook instead. Carter's face softened, and that was somehow worse than pity would have been. Pity looked down. Carter looked straight at me, like whatever was happening did not make me smaller in his eyes. Slowly, I took the hoodie. It was warm from him, and the moment I pulled it over my head, the world narrowed to the scent of laundry soap, cedar from his house, and rain from the field. The sleeves fell past my wrists. The hem reached almost to my thighs. I must have looked ridiculous, but Carter did not smile. He stepped back under the little awning beside me, giving me room without leaving. For a while, neither of us spoke. Inside the diner, the team cheered at something, probably Mason turning our winning goal into a 3-act historical event. Outside, the alley held only the tapping rain and the low hum of the kitchen vent. I used to think starting over would feel cleaner, I said before I could stop myself. Carter looked at me, but he did not interrupt. That made the words easier and harder at the same time. I thought I would come here, rent a small place, join a team, take on friendly local design jobs, and suddenly become someone who knew what he was doing. But it turns out you can move 180 miles and still bring yourself with you. Carter leaned one shoulder against the brick wall. That sounds inconvenient. I let out a wet laugh. Very. For what it is worth, he said, you are better company than you think. I looked at him then, really looked. Rain glimmered in his hair. His arms were crossed, not from impatience, but from cold he was pretending not to feel. Carter Hayes, who always had the right words for a nervous freshman before gym class, for a discouraged teammate after a missed shot, for a sponsor who wanted to cut funding without looking cruel, suddenly looked like a man choosing each word carefully because this mattered more than he wanted to admit. You do not have to fix this, I said. I know. I mean it. I am not your responsibility. His eyes stayed on mine. I know that too. The answer should have relieved me. Instead, it made my chest ache. Because he was not staying out of obligation. He was staying because he wanted to. After a few minutes, Carter asked, do you want to go back inside, or do you want me to drive you home? I glanced toward the diner door. The idea of walking back into the noise with red eyes and his hoodie swallowing me whole made my stomach twist. Home, I said, then winced at the word. Carter noticed, but did not comment. He only nodded. I will tell Coach you were tired. And Mason? I will tell Mason that if he starts a rumor, he has to run 3 extra laps Monday. That might only encourage him. Then 5. I smiled for the first time since stepping into the alley. Carter held the side door open, not making a big ceremony of it, not touching me, not asking for a confession. He had not earned. As we slipped through the back hallway and out toward his truck, I kept my hands buried inside the long sleeves of his hoodie. I did not know then that it meant something to him. I only knew that for the first time in a long time, I was walking beside someone who did not need me to pretend the rain was not rain. By Monday evening, the rain had stopped, but Harbor Cove still carried the shine of it. The grass behind the community center was damp enough to darken everyone's cleats, and the air smelled like salt, cedar, and wet pavement warming under a weak strip of sunset. I arrived 5 minutes early because I had spent the entire day deciding not to arrive at all. The hoodie was folded in my duffel bag, freshly washed, carefully dried, and impossible to ignore. I had told myself I would hand it back before practice, make a joke, and restore the natural order of the universe, where Carter Hayes was the responsible captain, and I was the new guy who occasionally passed the ball correctly and apologized to municipal objects. But the moment I stepped onto the field, Mason spotted me from across the sideline and shouted, Brooks, where is your royal garment? 3 heads turned. Eli nearly dropped a bag of cones. Coach Ramirez closed his eyes like a man asking for patience from every available source. I felt heat crawl up my neck. It is called laundry, Mason. Some of us participate in society. Mason jogged backward, grinning. So you admit you had it long enough to wash it? I admit nothing. That sounds like something a guilty man would say. Before I could answer, Carter walked out of the equipment shed carrying 2 nets over one shoulder. His hair was still damp from a shower, his whistle hanging loose around his neck, his expression calm until his eyes landed on me. Not on my face first. On my duffel bag. As if he knew. As if the hoodie had its own weather system, and he could feel it from 30 feet away. For one strange second, the field noise faded again, but this time it was not panic. It was expectation. I crossed the grass toward him, pretending my heartbeat was not behaving like a junior varsity drummer. I brought it back, I said quietly, lowering my duffel from my shoulder. Carter adjusted the nets, buying himself a moment. You did not have to. You said that yesterday. Still true today. I cannot keep wearing your name around town. His eyes flickered with something I could not read. It is just a hoodie, Brooks. There it was again, the same sentence from his message, only now it sounded less like a joke and more like a locked door. I unzipped the bag anyway and pulled it out, folded into a neat navy square. The white letters of his name faced up. Carter looked at it, and for the first time since I had known him, his careful stillness cracked. Not much, just enough. His hand tightened on the net. His jaw shifted. His gaze went somewhere far beyond the field, beyond me, beyond the orange light settling over the bleachers. Then Mason called from midfield. Captain, are we practicing soccer or staring at laundry? Carter blinked. The door closed again, and he took the hoodie from me. Laps, he called without looking away. Mason's grin vanished. For everyone? For anyone with commentary. Eli whispered, That means you. The team scattered, laughing, groaning, moving into warm-ups, but I stayed where I was because Carter was still holding the hoodie like it weighed more than cotton should. Did I do something wrong? I asked. His eyes came back to mine. The guarded look softened, and for a moment he seemed tired in a way that had nothing to do with soccer practice or Monday evenings. No, he said. You did not. Then why do you look like I returned a family heirloom? The question slipped out before I could make it funny enough to be safe. Carter's expression changed so quickly that I wished I could pull the words back. He glanced toward the old field house at the edge of the parking lot, where faded team photos lined the hallway and the paint peeled near the doors. Then he folded the hoodie once, carefully, almost gently. Warm up with the others, he said. I wanted to push. I wanted to ask why his voice had gone quiet, why he could handle a whole team depending on him, but not one honest question from me. Instead, I nodded and jogged toward the midfield line, where Mason was pretending not to watch us and failing spectacularly. Practice began with passing drills, then sprints, then a scrimmage under lights that clicked on one by one as evening deepened. Carter coached like nothing had happened. He corrected my footwork. He praised Eli's cross. He made Mason redo a sloppy corner kick 3 times. But whenever I looked toward the sideline, the hoodie sat folded on the bench beside his clipboard, untouched by grass, untouched by anyone else. And I began to understand that the mystery was not why he had given it to me. The real mystery was why giving it away had scared him so much. After that Monday practice, the hoodie became less of an object and more of a town-wide weather pattern. I did not take it home that night, but somehow it found its way back to me by Wednesday. Carter claimed I had left my own jacket in the equipment shed, which was technically true because he had asked me to carry cones there and then distracted me by saying my left foot pass was improving. By Friday, the temperature dropped to 56 degrees, and he handed me the hoodie before warm-ups without a word. Coastal 56. I asked. Dangerous conditions, he said. Mason, who had been stretching nearby with all the subtlety of a marching band, whispered, historic romance levels of wind chill. Carter made him run laps. The problem was that the hoodie was comfortable. That was an unfair advantage. It was too big, warm enough for evening practices, and somehow perfect for the walk home above Mrs. Alvarez's flower shop, where the stairwell smelled like roses, soil, and whatever soup she was making downstairs. I told myself I only wore it because my apartment was drafty. Then I wore it while finishing logo sketches for the Harbor Wolves fundraiser. Then I wore it to the grocery store at 7 in the morning, where Rosie saw me buying cereal and raised one eyebrow, so high it nearly left her face. Nice color on you, Danny, she said, ringing up my oranges. It belongs to Carter. Most good things in this town have belonged to somebody before they found the right person. I paid very quickly. The fundraiser meeting was held that Saturday in the community center, under fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly suspicious. The team needed money to repair the old field house roof before winter, so Coach Ramirez had volunteered me to design posters, donation cards, and a new temporary logo. You are good with beautiful little computer things, he said, which was both inaccurate and somehow charming. Carter sat across from me at the folding table, reviewing equipment costs with the seriousness of a man negotiating international peace. I kept trying not to look at him. This became difficult because Mason had placed a hand-drawn chart on the whiteboard titled Hoodie Custody Schedule. Monday, Carter. Tuesday, Danny. Wednesday, Unresolved Feelings. Eli laughed so hard, he had to leave the room for water. Carter stared at the chart for 5 full seconds, then calmly erased only the words Unresolved Feelings. Inaccurate, he said. My heart stumbled. Mason gasped. So you admit there is a schedule? I admit your handwriting needs help. Everyone laughed, and for a while the room felt easy. I showed the first logo draft, a simple wolf silhouette shaped like a wave, navy and silver, with Harbor Cove's lighthouse hidden in the negative space. Carter went quiet when he saw it. Not his usual quiet. A softer one. He touched the edge of the paper with 2 fingers. You made us look like we belong here, he said. I swallowed. You do. So do you. The words were simple, but they stayed with me through the rest of the meeting, through Mason spilling lemonade on the donation forms, through Eli suggesting a bake sale despite once burning microwave popcorn so badly the fire department came. Later, when everyone left, I tried again to return the hoodie. Carter was stacking chairs. I held it out between us. before this gets legally complicated. He looked at the hoodie, then at the rain starting beyond the windows. It is wet outside. It is barely misting. Mist counts. Carter. He took one chair from me instead of the hoodie. Keep it until the fundraiser. Why? This time, he did not answer right away. The room hummed with old lights and distant rain. Finally, he said, because you look less cold when you wear it. I wanted to make a joke. I wanted to ask what that meant. But Carter had already turned back to the chairs, and I realized with a strange, aching fondness that he was not avoiding me because he did not care. He was avoiding the part where caring became something he had to say out loud. The fundraiser arrived on a Saturday that looked almost too pretty for the amount of stress hidden inside it. The sky over Harbor Cove was clear for the first time all week, pale blue above the community field, with gulls circling over the bay and the smell of grilled hot dogs drifting from the parking lot. Parents set up folding tables. The high school marching band played something cheerful and slightly off-key. Mrs. Alvarez donated buckets of sunflowers for the raffle table, and Rosie arrived with 6 pies balanced in the back seat of her car like sacred cargo. I should have been proud. My posters were taped to every fence and telephone pole within 5 miles. The new Wolf and Wave logo had been printed on donation cards, paper cups, and a crooked banner Mason insisted on hanging himself because he claimed to have superior ladder energy. But the field house roof still needed more money than anyone wanted to admit, and Carter had been moving through the event with that quiet, serious focus he got whenever too many people depended on him. He smiled for donors. He thanked volunteers. He fixed a loose tent pole, carried ice, found a lost little girl's stuffed rabbit, and somehow still noticed when Eli forgot to eat lunch. Watching him made my chest feel full and sore at the same time. Around 3 o'clock, Coach Ramirez asked me to grab extra tape from the fieldhouse office. I went gladly, needing a moment away from the crowd. The hallway inside was cooler, dimmer, and smelled like dust, grass, and old paint. Team photos lined the walls in uneven rows. Harbor Wolves from every decade smiling in muddy uniforms, arms around shoulders, faces younger than the stories attached to them. I found the tape in a metal cabinet, but as I turned to leave, one photograph stopped me. It was maybe 6 or 7 years old. Carter stood in the back row, younger, thinner, his smile wider than I had ever seen it. Beside him was another man with the same eyes, the same strong jaw, the same quiet confidence softened by mischief. Across both of their chests was the same navy hoodie, or maybe 2 identical ones, with Hayes stitched in white. Below the frame, a small brass plate read, Harbor Wolves Championship Season, Captain Owen Hayes and Assistant Captain Carter Hayes. I stared at the name until the hallway seemed to go still. That was his brother. I turned. Rosie stood in the doorway holding a box of napkins against her hip, her expression gentle in a way that made me lower my voice without meaning to. Owen, I asked. She nodded. Older by 3 years. Everyone thought he would coach here forever. He was the kind of person who made you believe your worst day was still worth showing up for. My fingers curled around the roll of tape. What happened? Rosie looked at the photograph, and her smile became sad but warm. He passed away the summer after that season. A heart condition no one knew about. It was quiet, sudden, and it changed this place. Changed Carter most of all. I looked back at the photo, at that wide younger smile on Carter's face, and then at the hoodie in the frame. My throat tightened. He gave me Owen's hoodie. Rosie did not look surprised. Then he trusts you more than he knows how to say. The noise of the fundraiser drifted in through the open door, laughter and music and the bounce of a soccer ball against pavement, but I could only hear Carter's voice in the rain, telling me I was cold. It had never been just about the weather. It had been about memory and grief, and a part of him he had kept folded away where no one could touch it. I thought of every time I had tried to hand the hoodie back as a joke, every time he had gone quiet, every time he had let me keep it anyway. Outside, through the small office window, I saw Carter standing near the donation table, smiling politely while a little boy showed him a gap-toothed grin and asked for help tying his cleats. Carter knelt without hesitation, patient, present, carrying a loss so carefully that most people mistook it for strength. I pressed the tape against my palm and understood, with a tenderness that almost hurt, that he had not given me a confession. He had given me a place beside the memory of someone he loved. By the time the sun began to lower behind the cedar trees, The fundraiser had become the kind of memory Harbor Cove would probably exaggerate for years. Mason's crooked banner survived 3 strong gusts of wind and 1 direct hit from a soccer ball. Rosie sold every slice of pie before 5 o'clock. Mrs. Alvarez won her own sunflower raffle and acted shocked with the dignity of a woman who had absolutely arranged it. And when Coach Ramirez finally climbed onto a folding chair with the donation box in his hands, his eyes were brighter than the sunset. "We did it," he announced, his voice rough with feeling. "The field house gets a new roof." The cheer that rose from the crowd rolled across the grass and out toward the bay, warm and messy and alive. I looked for Carter and found him standing near the sideline, apart from the noise for just a moment, one hand pressed to the back of his neck as if relief had made him heavier instead of lighter. I walked over with the hoodie folded in my arms. I had planned a speech. Something careful about Rosie, the photograph, Owen, and how sorry I was for treating something precious like a running joke. But when Carter saw the hoodie, his face changed, and all my prepared words scattered like paper in wind. "I know," I said softly. "About Owen." Carter looked past me toward the field house. For a second, I thought he might step away. Instead, he breathed out slowly and nodded. "Rosie told you." "The photo did first." He was quiet for a long moment. Children chased a ball near the goal. Someone laughed by the food tables. The world kept being ordinary around us, which somehow made the truth feel safer. "He was the captain before me," Carter said. "Better at it too. Louder. Funnier. He could make a kid believe they were the best player on the field, even if they were facing the wrong direction." A small smile touched his mouth, then faded. After he passed, everyone kept saying I was strong. I think they meant it kindly, but after a while, strong started to feel like another word for alone. I held the hoodie tighter. "Carter, I am sorry. You do not have to be." I kept trying to give it back. I kept letting you keep it. His eyes met mine, honest and unguarded in a way I had not seen before. "That night behind Rosie's, when you said you were not sure where home was, I understood it more than I wanted to. I did not know how to say that. I did not know how to say I wanted you to stay, not because the team needed you, not because you made a good pass, but because when you are here, this place feels a little less like something I am only protecting for someone who is gone." My throat tightened. For once, I did not hide behind a joke right away. I unfolded the hoodie and looked at the names stitched over the chest. "I thought you were embarrassed." Carter shook his head. "I was scared. Of me. Of needing someone again." The answer was so simple that it hurt. I stepped closer, still leaving enough space for him to choose. "You could have told me. I am working on my communication." That made me laugh, quiet and unsteady. Carter smiled too, and the evening seemed to soften around us. I held out the hoodie. "Then communicate this. Do you want it back?" He looked at it, then at me, and this time there was no locked door in his expression. "No," he said. "I want you to keep it." A few weeks later, the new roof went up on the field house. The Harbor Wolves won the local championship, and my Wolf and Wave logo was painted across the wall by volunteers who got more paint on themselves than on the bricks. My apartment above the flower shop finally had curtains, unpacked boxes, and a second coffee mug that Carter used so often Mrs. Alvarez started calling it his. On cool evenings, I still wore the navy hoodie to practice. Sometimes Carter would tug lightly on one drawstring as he passed and say, "Coastal weather." And I would say, "Dangerous conditions." It became our small joke, our quiet promise. Not a dramatic confession, not a perfect ending, just 2 men learning, slowly and honestly, how to be warm for each other. And for the first time in a long time, when someone asked me where home was, I knew exactly where to look.